neighbour.com, event code #57745. Put that in your smartphone, your tablet, or your computer, because I'll be asking you both some poll questions, and it's your chance to ask me questions anonymously about money. You can put those in at any time, and my colleague Renee will read them out to me when we get towards the back end of the presentation. We've only got 30 minutes today, only 30 minutes. So please put your questions in, and if we don't get a chance to answer them during the event, we'll try and answer them in written format after the event. So please put your questions in. There are no silly questions. So thank you for joining me today in this 30-minute webinar. This is the fourth of 5 sessions that we've been doing all at lunchtime this week in Talk Money Week exclusively for Co-op employees and colleagues. So I'm Jason Butler, and I'm the Head of Financial Education here at Neighbour, which is part of the Salary Finance family. Now, Neighbour is an employee benefit which is available to you as an employee, and that includes access to financial education, of which this is part, and affordable loans which are repaid directly from your salary, which normally makes them a bit cheaper. Now, our to help millions of employees to get and stay financially healthy and happy. Now, I just need to point out before we get into the content that this session is not personal financial advice. And if you're in any doubt about your own situation, please either contact your local Citizens Advice Bureau or Step Change if you need help with money guidance or anything to do with debt, or a regulated financial advisor if you need much more personal milestones 5, 6, and 7. You can do those concurrently at the same time to whatever extent makes sense to your situation. So what we're looking to do is get the foundation sorted, get ourselves in a position where we can move forward positively, and then we're looking to consolidate and move forward to really make our financial well-being really high. Now, as I say, in today's session, I'm going to really focus on milestone 4, which is the last of those foundational milestones, and it's all about finishing off your emergency fund. Now, a financial drama is an event that is beyond your control that causes you stress, anxiety, or worry. Now, it's not a case of if, but it's a case of when a financial curveball comes from nowhere. Now, you know what happens? Your TV dies, your dog needs a bad tooth removed, and your new car, or rather your existing car, needs new tires. I've had all of these things happen to me at all different stages over my life. The last one being my car went in for a service. It was meant to be £400 or £500. It's only a 3-year-old car. It ended up costing me £1,600. Now, I wasn't enamored about that. It needed new tyres, new discs, new brake pads. It needed some other special filter. The point was that although I wasn't enamored, I had made a provision for that. I had an adequate emergency fund that meant what was potentially a drama was merely an inconvenience. So that's what we're talking about, stuff, you know, and the things about financial problems is that they sort of hang out in groups. They like to hang out together, and then what they want to do is like vampires. They want to drain your bank account at the same time. So if you don't have enough cash to hand, then that's when things start becoming stressful, and you'll be racking up overdrafts and credit card debts faster than you can binge watch a season of Game of Thrones, which is a good season. It's well worth doing. So, and it's not just the one-off expenses that can creep up and blow you off course either. It's also changes in your household income that can blow a hole in your financial situations. So it could be illness, it could be disability, it could be caring responsibilities. They can all affect how much you or your partner can earn. So you might well be okay in your job, but your partner's situation may be very different, or the outlook may be different. And I'll come back to explain that. Or it could be a change in your circumstances if you have a marital breakup or a relationship breakup. So again, what we're talking about here is an emergency fund is insurance against those inevitable financial curveballs that come along. So it's a fully funded emergency fund. Now, before we get into some strategies about this and some whys and wherefores, I want to ask you a question. I want to know, do you have an emergency fund? So So if you attended Tuesday's session, then you'll know this is a similar question I asked when we were talking about the starter emergency fund. So please go to the slido.com, event code 57746, and I want you to answer. It's all anonymous. We don't know who you are. Do you have an emergency fund? Yes, more than 3 months core expenses. Yes, between £1,000 and 3 months core expenses. Yes, less than £1,000, or no, nothing really to talk of. It's going to be interesting to compare the results from today with the attendees on Tuesday. Now, if you're all the same people, it'll all be probably the same result. I mean, you may well have moved your situation, probably not likely. So please do vote away. Don't be shy. We just want to get a sense of where we are with this, and to show you also that you're not alone. How are we doing, Renee? Have we got any? Are they being shy today? Or are they really fast off the blocks?
They're being a bit shy today, but so maybe I'll just give it a couple more seconds to see if any
now,
more
here's the thing. No one's going to judge you with this. This is about us, and this is a really important thing about financial well-being. There is no embarrassment here. It's totally anonymous on Slido. We just want to get a sense of where you're at, okay? And being truthful to yourself is the absolute essence of financial well-being. If you can't be truthful to yourself, right, no one's going to judge you. I know it shows a bit of vulnerability, I suppose, but, you know, so how are we doing then?
Yep. All right. So we've got 38% saying no, 31% saying yes, less than £1,000.
Yeah.
23% saying yes, between £1,000 and 3 months worth of expenses, and 8% saying yes, more than 3 months expenses.
How does that compare to Tuesday?
So pretty similar to Tuesday. On Tuesday, we had 35% say no, and 29% said yes, less than £1,000, and 29% said yes, between £1,000 and 3 month expenses, and only 6% said yes, more than.
All right, so it's less than 10% have more than 3 months expenses, core expenses, right? And everyone's broadly 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so look, here's the thing: you're not alone, right? It's the minority of people who have more than 3 months expenses. Okay, it's the minority. But I don't want you to be in, I don't want you to think that that's because it's a minority, it doesn't apply to you. We can get you there. We can. The first thing is becoming aware. So here's the thing. Financial well-being is all about feeling in control and able to adapt to financial curveballs, right? So that you've got choices today and security in the future. And if any of you don't know, I was a train wreck in my early 20s, had over £30,000 of non-mortgage debt. My bank account was a mess. I was in fact, I had negative equity of £17,000 on my property, and I sold my house for about £18,000 less than I paid for it. And that was in the early 90s. So I know what it's like to feel embarrassed or not have the ability to get ahead. And I was really in a hole. I didn't even know what emergency fund was. Now, let's just remind ourselves what an emergency fund isn't. Okay, I think this is important. It's not to be used to fund luxuries or unnecessary spending like a new tattoo or a weekend away when we can finally do that. And a delivered pizza is not an emergency. I know some people think that Deliveroo and Uber Eats is an emergency, but it isn't. Okay, you've got to really get this in your mind. This is not what the emergency fund is for. I'll share with you again on Friday. Tomorrow we'll go over some of the things, particularly the smart spending system, which is how you account for fun stuff and the stuff that makes life a bit interesting. But this is not that. What it is, it's a pot of cash that you can access to meet unexpected expenses or a drop in income. Let me say that again. It's unexpected expenses, which you have to meet. The car breaks down, the vet bill, etc. Or equally as likely, a drop in income, either because of illness or circumstances, as I've said before. Is that drop in income which people don't always realise. And they're only realising now with the COVID situation. I have done countless webinars since COVID hit, where really people weren't aware. No one could foresee a pandemic. But let's use this as an excuse. If it's not a pandemic, it's going to be something else. And you can't always control those things. So what do you do? Where do you hold it? You hold it in a simple savings account. So it's not in investments that can fluctuate like shares, and it's not your pension, right? We're not talking here about not being in your pension. You need to be in your pension, but we're talking about a pot of money that doesn't vary, doesn't make a great deal of return. Remember, we don't really care what the interest is. I mean, it's nice to get some interest return, but what we really want is insurance against us not then wanting to be able to, or needing to take on debt or get ourselves in a load of stress. So having enough in our emergency fund means that we can turn a potential financial drama, as I said before, into a mere inconvenience. And what that means is you're going to be able to avoid racking up, as I say, expensive debts and all the stress that goes with that. You're going to have more confidence to face the future. You might actually be prepared to take more risks with life, okay? You're going to feel more in control of your money because you think, okay, I can cope with stuff. You're going to have a lot less tension and conflict with your partner over money. I do a whole webinar series on money and relationships, okay? And being married for 25 years to the same lady, I can probably share with you a hell of a lot of what does and doesn't work, and also all the research behind that. So that's a big issue if you can reduce tension in your relationship. And here's the thing, you're going to have more what I call financial wiggle room. You're going to be able to move about a bit. You're going to have a bit of any kind of plan is just a framework. It's not a straitjacket. All right. So here's the thing. The key to being able to cope with those financial dramas and shocks, as I say, is holding between 3 to 6 months of essential core household living costs in your emergency fund. Now, take a big deep breath. What that means is if your essential household expenses like your mortgage, utilities, transport costs, loans, insurance, food, all that stuff, if that comes to £1,500 a month, that means that your emergency fund needs to ideally be between £4,500 and £9,000. Now, I know what you're all thinking, Jason, what planet are you on, right? You are not in the real world. Hang on a minute. This is our ideal. I'm now going to clarify with you how you work your number out, because it does vary from one person. But here's the thing. Think about how you're going to feel. How you're going to feel if you had that money available. Not holiday money. This is an emergency fund. Once you've got this here, everything else becomes easier. Now, if you attended my session on Tuesday, you'll know that you should already have in place £1,000 in your emergency starter fund before you repay all non-mortgage debt. And if you missed my earlier webinar on that topic, you'll be able to watch the recordings because Co-op will be making that available to all colleagues via YouTube link. And you should have repaid all your non-mortgage debts. That was covered on Wednesday's session. That's loans, overdrafts, credit cards, payday loans, any of that stuff is all gone, okay? So now we're not paying out on loans. Now we need to take that £1,000 or whatever amount you have and get it to that 3 to 6 months of living costs. So I know what you're thinking, okay, how do I work out exactly how much I need to get to? What's the target? Well, here's the factors that you might want to consider. How secure is your income as a household, not just where you work? What's the stability of your income? In other words, does it vary? So one is the security of your job and your work. The other is the stability of your income. Does your income vary a lot? If it does, you might need a slightly higher emergency fund. What amount makes you feel secure? Now, having gone through the wars with my own finances in my 20s, I never want to go back to the situation of worrying about money. I have to hold 12 months core living costs. Now, my core living costs are quite low, okay, because I don't have any debt at all. And I don't spend a hell of a lot of money, but I still need to feel, me and my wife have 12 months core living costs there, nothing to do with holidays, nothing to do with anything else, because we know that that just makes us feel comfortable and we can sleep well at night. And we do not touch that money unless it's for an emergency. And also anticipated changes to your circumstances. Are you thinking of starting a family? You know, if you are, you might want a slightly bigger fund. Are you expecting to retire soon? Are you thinking, are you sure there's an inheritance coming to you and you're just winding an estate up? In which case you might be able to get away with a smaller amount. And also the anticipated growth in your income. If you've just started out or you're quite young or you're a junior grade or you've got your sights set on a higher paying band, then and your income's going to grow quickly, then you might be able to cope with a much smaller amount of things. So it's everything is personalized. So let's try and focus now on a second poll question to help you work this out. I want you to work out, basically choose, again, go to slido.com, hash 57745, and it's poll question 2. Which factor is most relevant or important to you? My household income looks secure. My household cash flow looks stable. Feeling secure is really important. I expect some big changes in my circumstances soon, such as starting a family or buying a house. I expect my income to rise a lot over the next few years. So choose one of those that's either most relevant or most important to you. And as you'll see, it's all, a lot of this is preference. So, you know, getting to nearer the 3 times expenses is a lot easier than getting to 6 times. But the 6 times is determined by your preferences and the outlook in your personal circumstances. There's no one size fits all. And it is core living costs, because clearly you don't have to have holidays, and you don't have to have extra clothes, and you don't have to have beauty products and stuff. We're talking about the core living costs. So are we still got people awake there, Renee?
Yes, we do. So we've got the results are 50%, so half of the people attending today want to feel secure. Feeling secure is really important.
Yeah.
42% say my household cash flow looks stable, and 8% say I expect some big changes to my circumstances soon, e.g. intending to start a family.
Okay. Thank you for that, everyone. Thank you very much for taking part. So here's the thing. Whatever you chose there, that's your dominant factor. But these other factors I've mentioned here in the poll and I've just described, they're also relevant. And the point is, this changes. This is dynamic. This is not set in stone. So what you've got to do is you have to check in once a year at least to rethink about your emergency fund. Is it adequate? Is it too high? Is it too low? Because that really helps you. And you think about the money milestones. Milestone 1 is have a smart spending plan. Milestone 2 is a starter emergency fund. Milestone 3 is get rid of all non-mortgage debt. And milestone 4, the one we're talking about today, get to that optimum ideal amount. And here's the thing. You might never get to the optimum amount, and the optimum amount will keep on changing. But the act of trying to get to it will help you both in terms of influencing your daily spending and earning habits. And it will also make you think much more carefully about the spending and the earning that you do, because you're more mindful. How does this, I remember years ago, I had a financial planner do a plan for me when I was 30, and that's a story which I'll share tomorrow. But my wife always said to me, what does David think, when I was thinking about doing something financially? But really, what you don't need David, you don't need me. What you need is, okay, how does this affect our emergency fund? Is the emergency fund that we think we need, is that the right number? And secondly, how does that compare with what we've got? And if you test all your decisions against that, you're going to make better decisions. Okay, so a good tip when you're faced with a financial milestone like this is to focus on the smaller of the amount you've saved or that you still need to save. So let's give you an example. If you've saved 1,500 in your emergency fund and your target is 4,500, you need to keep focusing on the fact that you've saved 100 until you get to 2,300. In other words, it's over halfway. And then what you do is you switch your focus to the fact you only need to save £2,200 because I've got 2,300. And psychologically, by focusing on the smaller of the amount you saved or the amount you've still got to save, psychologically, all of the research shows that that's much more effective at maintaining your confidence and a sense of progress. Now, let's just repeat this one. I want you to repeat this to friends, colleagues, relatives from now till the end of the year. Remember, we're looking to make progress on our money, not perfection. Progress on our money, not perfection. So if there's one thing people say, what did you get out today? Say progress, not perfection. Okay, so let's look at a couple of ways that you can save, build the money for your emergency fund. Sell off unwanted stuff. Phones, tablets, laptops, games consoles, they could all be worth money. Cash generators, Mazumba, Music Magpie, all of these sites, they will buy gear off you. I have got 200 or 300 quid in the last year from bits and bobs that are sitting around. So, you know, the stuff that you aren't using, the gadgets, are worth money. Check your entitlement to state benefits, entitled2.co.uk, or your local benefit office, or your local authority, or citizens' advice. There's lots of cash hanging around. Even I, right, been in the business 30 odd years, found out that my wife last year was entitled to carer's allowance, 270 quid a month, because she looks after her elderly 85-year-old mother who's not very well. We didn't even realise until we double checked the numbers, and we were entitled to it. So here's the thing. That's £3,000 I didn't know about. How much is sitting around that you don't know about that you potentially could get? And this changes all the time. And the local authorities have just been released a lot more money by government. So double check, even if you look 2 months ago, should be something you're checking all the time. Sell stuff that you can't afford, right? So here's the thing. You've got a car or a motorbike. If you've got it on finance, get rid of it. if you've got a car, even if you haven't got it on finance, if you can't afford it and you need the money to free up funds, go and get yourself an older car. It doesn't have to be a complete banger, but get yourself a car that you can afford. Your emergency fund comes first, not having a swanky car. No one gives a monkey's what you're driving around, and you need a car that's so ugly that you need to give it a name that you'll laugh about in 4 or 5 years' time. This is what you've got to do if you want to get serious about this. I went back many years ago and driving bangers and cars that weren't great. I'm not saying drive unsafe stuff. I'm saying, but for a couple of £1,000, you can get yourself a lot of car. My late father-in-law's BMW, which was 12 years old and in mint condition, we've just sold for £2,200. And it is a lovely car, immaculate condition, that will give someone 2 or 3 years great motoring, and it looks lovely. Earn more. So very simple as that. Can you or your partner do extra shifts, or do a side hustle, or make money out of something you like doing? I mean, even if it's knitting, you can make money out of anything. And this is a real good one. Free cash from the government from the Help to Save scheme. Now, the Help to Save scheme basically gives you 50p for every pound you save, up to £50 a month for up to 2 years. And you can also do it for years 3 and 4 as well. So you can turn basically every pound you've got into £1.50. So look at that. All you need to do is qualify for universal credit or working tax credits at the time you open the account. And as many more people now qualify for universal credit since the coronavirus pandemic, this is a no-brainer. Please, please, even if it doesn't qualify to you, tell your friends. You only need to open it with £1 to get in there. And live on the essentials. This is the bad news, right? You've got to live on the essentials until you get that emergency fund fully funded, which is why it's important to know how much is enough. And then you can ease off and you can start to spend money on fun. But until then, I'm sorry, it is frugal living, I'm afraid. I know we've got more Christmas coming up, but you've got to just use coronavirus as an excuse to get your affairs in order. Everyone will understand. Don't buy everyone presents. Just say, look, we're all going to buy each other a Secret Santa, one present each across the whole family. Everyone will understand. They're probably relieved if you raise this issue. And I've got a session at the end of this month, a webinar called How to Avoid the Christmas Blues, where I'll share with you some really simple tips over half an hour, how you can go into Christmas and survive it in one piece financially. But you've got to be super focused, determined, intentional until you hit that target, and then you can ease off. So here's the thing. You've got to accept that you're going to make mistakes, and it is not going to go according to plan. And that's okay. We all make mistakes as we're doing new things. So there we go. Now we've got time for questions. We've got a few minutes left for questions. Please, please, please don't be shy. If you don't have any questions or you don't feel like you want to answer, put them on Slido. Then, obviously I can answer loads that I had last week. Have we got any there, Renee?
Yep, we've got a few. So I'll start off with, for an emergency fund,
yeah,
do we still work in monthly insurance payments, even though we should pay those annually?
Yes. So if you basically what that question is I recommend that you pay insurance annually once you've got ahead, once you've got your emergency fund in place, and once you've got control of your spending. But that money for insurance comes from your smoothing reserve, which is all spending system we talked about on Monday, and you can look at that recording and you can find that on the Financial Wellbeing Hub, which I'll show you in a minute. So yes, but basically you're going to be putting in your emergency fund anything which has to be paid, whether it's an annual or whether it's a monthly amount you put aside for it. If it's essential and you have to have it, that has to go into the calculation to work out your multiple of 3 to 6 months.
Cool. That's the only one, sorry.
Okay.
We've got so far. So maybe something from last week.
Yeah. I had a really good question. I do an Instagram live every week, and I had a really good question after the event from one of my followers. And she said to me, I've got a problem with my partner not really wanting to wise up to this whole thing about being intentional with money. And it causes a lot of tension. And she'd previously seen me talk about the emergency fund and why I love both my spending plan and my emergency fund. They're the two things apart from my wife, which I hold dear, okay, because they give me the choices. And I said, look, the problem is, she said, her partner won't really talk about it and he gets really defensive. And I said, well, look, there's probably three issues that I've found that affect this. One is you've got to choose the right time. You can't talk to someone when they're ultra tired or they're under stress or you've had a row. Okay, that's not the time to do it, or there's other tension or stuff going on in your life. Secondly, you have to do it in a way where it doesn't make the person feel defensive. So you want to be talking about the future. I just want to have a chat when we get a minute about like kind of where we see things next year, what we're doing with our money. Because if you talk about the future, you're not really putting any kind of stuff about the past, are you? You're really focusing on what could be, and you're not making the person feel defensive because you're not attacking them. And then the third thing is that what often happens is when couples aren't really on the same page, it's because they're not communicating properly. And actually, I would say 50 to 60% of money problems between couples is not really a money problem. It's probably a relationship communication problem. So sometimes you'll find, I remember when my wife and I went through sessions with an expert on this whole thing, because, I walk my talk, we both wanted the same thing, but we hadn't quite articulated to each other the same language. So once we both realized that we don't really want anything really too swanky in life, we're not big spenders, then everything became easier. And then also the other thing was accepting who is going to take what primary responsibility for stuff. So you might, for instance, be the one who runs the spending plan, but you want your partner to take part and get involved in it. And you want to make allowance for fun and stuff like that, which we'll cover again tomorrow in the summary session. So I'd say the vast majority of money problems in relationships is normally down to communication and not being clear about your shared priorities. And I do know also it's tough, right? There's lots of temptation. There's lots of people spend when they're bored, they spend when they're sad, and it's easy to spend, isn't it? It's so easy to wander into debt, but you just can't wander out of it. And that's what this emergency fund does. It stops you getting into problems. How are we doing? Have we got any more there before I move on, Renee?
No, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. Well, don't worry.
No, sorry. That just my page just refreshed. When should you stop saving cash and start investing?
When you have a fully funded emergency fund.
Good.
Okay.
For emergent, how do you approach conversations with your partner if they don't buy into the saving effort in the same way you do?
Well, I kind of answered that, haven't I?
You've sort of answered that one, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a big subject, that one. And if you're interested, watch out for, we'll check with Co-op whether they want me to do the money and relationships one, because we do a deep dive into kind of some hypotheticals. I share some stories and I share some strategies. And that's always a good fun, that one, because I don't know all the answers, but I'll share with you some research and doing countless ones of these and speaking to people over the years. And also with my Relate friend who works with couples as well. So she shares with me lots of the strategies, and we kind of like partners in crime on this. So it's not just my perspective, it's also her perspective. That's a good one. But I think the key thing is communication. Okay?
Okay, cool.
Good. All right. So what I want to know now is what you're going to do to increase your emergency fund. So I want you to, again, go into Slido 57745, and I want you to choose and tell me which of these is going to be appealing to you. Are you going to sell off unneeded stuff or downscale your car? Are you going to cut spending on unnecessary things? And then we're talking about things that aren't serving you. Might you use the Help to Save account? Yeah, it's a way of starting, right? Are you going to check entitlement to state benefits? Shame in getting into, I've just told you, my wife gets carer's allowance. There's no shame in that. She does. Or are you going to keep doing what you're already doing? Because here's the thing, you may well already be going in the right direction. So the key thing is to remind yourself you're doing well, keep going. So vote away. This is where action always speaks louder than words. And I want to feel that there's a sense of progress here. So what's the scores on the doors looking like, Renee? What's the biggest vote?
So we have 50%, so half of the people are going to cut down spending on unnecessary things. Right. 30% are going to sell off unneeded stuff or downscale their car.
Right.
And 10% are going to check their entitlements, and 10% are going to keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I can't believe that no one qualifies for the Help to Save account. It's a no-brainer. Please double check that if you're entitled to it, or even if you aren't, please tell anyone you know who might be entitled to it. You can earn up to nearly £38,000, £40,000 a year and still be entitled to that. So do check that one out. Good. Okay. So look, there's a wealth of additional and helpful content on the NABER Financial Wellbeing Hub, which is available via the Co-op Colleagues website. So you can check that out. And if you enjoyed this webinar, Do join me again tomorrow when I'm going to be at this, basically reviewing all 4 of the initial money milestones that we covered this week. So I don't want you to accept being mediocre with money. I don't want you to accept that you can't get ahead and you can't be better. And don't tell yourself that you're not the money type. You can do this. I know you can. I look forward to seeing you all again at 12:30 tomorrow. Thanks for joining.